Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Right, so today we're going to be taking a look at the future Ant-Man and kind of my initial impressions and thoughts about him, being as honest as I possibly can. And so we are going to start out with this new punching bag Deadpool over here. And what I'm going to be trying to do is obviously just trying to show his basic rotation, as well as take a look at the fight time, because this is a more or less similar time as you would take to do an AQ Battlegrounds or a W fight. And he does have fairly specific rotation. Now here I did not want him to use that special attack, but it didn't really impede the fight progress either way. And that in fact is going to be one of the more important things to kind of pay attention to later on. So here we can see that I finish a combo with light that basically lets you throw a lower tier special than your power bar is currently at. I do that again, and now we have 3 of these disintegration or deterioration debuffs, which significantly reduces Deadpool's combat power rate. And then if you get to level 2, whilst that red passive is active, you do a ton of damage, and that was it. That's kind of how you play him. 52 hits, 49 seconds, and that's actually not bad at all. It is much better than I expected him to do. And one champion he kind of reminds me of playstyle-wise, somewhat slightly, is Penny Parker. He's more of a mix of Penny Parker with Punisher 2099, I suppose. But I wanted to compare how it is going to look side by side with Penny Parker, because as we know, Penny Parker's damage output is decent, but it's by no means like anything absolutely extraordinary. And in this case we are going to be trying to get away and see if one level 1 before that level 2 has enough reach to finish off the fight. With future Ant-Man obviously we did end up dropping 2 of them, but either way we can see that Penny has a similar style of ramp up where you throw a level 1 then get to level 2, or you throw 2 level 1s. And now obviously that passive heal block in between the Despair and 12 Incinerates was just enough to finish the fight. And in this case, do it slightly faster. But obviously that's also because I went with 1 level 1 instead of 2 level 1s. And quite interestingly, if we compare these, so in a short to medium fight, Penny potentially can maybe be faster, I think, or just about the same anyways. But Ant-Man's superiority here is going to be visible in a longer fight here, where we're going to see that when we ramp up our future Ant-Man with the 3 disintegrations, then get to that level 2, there are some quite decent numbers coming up, like 26k bursts per hit on that level 2. And one of the more important things is that it's consistent. It's not like with Penny Parker where you build up and then your build-up disappears. Your disintegrations are still there, they are still putting in work, and it's not like you lose all of your charges or whatnot. And that is something that I do like, because there is consistent opponent's combat power rate suppression in the background, which lets you play differently. Obviously, the downside of playing future Ant-Man potentially is the fact that you need to effectively do 4-hit combos and block all the time, because in the majority of the cases, you don't want to bait out opponent's special attack, you don't want them to throw a special attack. But in between having all the armor ups and glancing, you do not end up taking that much damage for it. And that is going to be something that I will likely find to be one of the main offensive purposes of the champion, to be honest. But we're going to see that in somewhat longer fight here for maxed out 5 stars. Future Ant-Man did this fight in 2 minutes 11. And then if I'm going to take Penny, and I'm gonna always do at least 1, or in most cases 2 level 1s before my level 2, or try to anyways. With Penny Parker this fight took 3:05. I probably could have done it slightly quicker, but in a longer fight his damage output actually exceeded Penny Parker's, which again kind of took me by surprise. I didn't think that would be the case. But here is going to be the most kind of important thing that I want to talk about when it comes to future Ant-Man, and pay attention to this fight, where I will actively try my best to prevent Star-Lord to throw a special attack pretty much the entire fight. The only thing that really irks me at the moment is that Kabam has altered AI, and more often than ever before, the AI randomly throws a special attack, even when you're blocking after a 4-hit combo, when there's absolutely zero reason. And if that would not be the case, I would be much more excited for future Ant-Man than I am right now. Because you can play future Ant-Man without ever needing opponent to throw a special attack. And I think that is one of the most special things about the character. And it is much more important than people initially realize, because a lot of problems in this game start when opponents throw special attacks. Like in EMP modification does absolutely nothing until opponent uses special attack. Like Overseer's auto block only activates after he uses special attack. Like fighting Ebony Maw in most cases, you know, if you are careful and not give you a degen, you get degen if he throws 2 level 1s, you know, and so on and so forth. There are tons of abilities. Footloose Node, for instance, that evade and unstoppable triggers when opponents throw special attack, even though he can't directly counter unstoppable or evade, but if opponents don't use special attack, he can counter the Footloose Node. So in this game, a ton of different things that typically complicate the fights happen when champions throw special attacks. And if you can play in a manner where you can prevent opponents from throwing a single special attack in the entire fight, it is extremely powerful. That's a big part of the reason why Quake's so powerful, why Magic's so powerful, why Dr. Doom is so powerful, because it gives you a great control of the fight. And if your damage is at the very least, you know, serviceable, that pretty much all but guarantees that you're going to be a great champion. So I do see quite a lot of potential in future Ant-Man, but as I said, and we saw it in this match already, where I am just sitting there holding block and opponent throws a special attack, and that is a change in AI profile. And that also at the same time, in my opinion, means that you will not necessarily want to use Ant-Man in some of the fights where in theory you should be able to. For instance, EMP modification, you gain a ton of buffs, and there's going to be 20 EMP charges. You're going to be sitting there holding block, knowing that, you know, there is absolutely no reason for AI to use a special attack. But if they do, you're dead. And Kabam messing with AI as much as they have definitely kind of degrades the purpose of the entire thing that you are seeing here on the screen. If you're paying attention that this entire fight, I'm doing 4-hit combos, I'm throwing my special attacks, and Star-Lord never gets to use his specials. I'm not afraid of pushing Star-Lord to his level 3. I'm always in control of the fight. There is that power drain that gets triggered in combination with his reduced combat power rate, and then me just blocking specials. It's been minutes. It's been minutes at this point since Star-Lord actually got to use a special attack. Until he just randomly decides to do so, even though I'm holding block. There's nothing that I'm changing in the way I'm approaching the fight. I do 4-hit combos, hold the block up immediately, hold the block up immediately after my special attacks. Always exactly the same thing. And just the fact that AI has become so random these days, in itself, basically means that, here, again, perfect example. Why did he throw a special attack? Against some fights, this wouldn't be end of the world, but as I mentioned, if this is like EMP modification, and in theory, it should work. Why did you throw a special attack? So let's revisit this. I throw a level 2. And here he does 5-hit combo. I do 4 hits. Hold block. He throws heavy. I punish. 3 hits. Punish heavy. 3 hits. He uses special attack. Why? The block was up immediately after I finished my hits. But he still used that special attack. And I think that is like one big major kind of like factor against the champion. I still like him. I still think he will be great for a ton of stuff. It's just what Kabam has done with AI immediately kind of dampens this champion's safety, reliability, I would say. But the other point is, you will notice that in this entire fight, I believe it's going to be about 6 minutes long. It's going to last until I quite literally just get KO'd from the block damage. At no point ever, I was forced to bait out a special attack from opponent. And that is still quite massive. The fact that you can just carry on playing and lowering opponents' combat power rate and power draining them and still dealing solid amount of damage, does tell me that there is definitely potential for this champion in the game. Obviously, how big we will have to see, but just the fact itself that he's capable of spending entire fight basically just sitting behind his block, glancing a ton, power draining opponent, and dealing decent amounts of damage, does tell me that there is use for him. Might not be the day-to-day questing champion or something like that, but definitely there will be situations where he is useful. Now, another thing with him is that he's likely going to be very, very annoying defender. This clip I'm going to show you guys because it's a very funny interaction. Because if he's max sig, and my 5-star is max sig, he reduces incinerate and bleed durations by 90%. Which obviously for longshot is not great. But every time a bleed or incinerate expires on him, he also gets a regen buff. Which against longshot turns into a very, very funny interaction, as we can see there, where all of those effects are reduced and don't last long, but there's just a ton of them. And it was one of the funnier interactions that I found. I will mess up this fight a bit. I will finish it eventually, but if my future Ant-Man would not be max sig, if it would not be sig 200 champion, then Longshot would have won this a long time ago. But as he was, we could see that he was taking a ton of damage, but that incinerate was expiring super quickly as well. I still found it like very funny. Longshot does have very funny interactions with some of the champions. Anyways, as a potentially the fastest counter at the moment for this guy, because technically he only has one direct counter in the game at the moment, which is Hulkling. Because, well, Valkyrie kind of can count as a counter, but realistically it's just Hulkling. But I do think that Tiger is going to be an absolutely mental counter for this guy, because his level 1 is super easy to deal with, and yeah. This was like a rank 3 4-star Tiger against maxed out 5-star in 30 seconds. So Tiger is going to shred down the guy for sure. And another thing that's quite important is that unless you're going up against like a really, really chunky version of Ant-Man Future, you can actually use majority of the champions, because he does have that line about having a 10% chance to glance on his base. And then for each of his armor ups, he gets additional like 6% or something like that. But you can get rid of those by intercepting. And then as long as you keep on top of it, as long as you don't let them build up, he's hardly going to be gaining them. So it's not kind of end of the world there. And most of the champions, I think, will be able to deal with future Ant-Man relatively decently. So I use some random Gamora. I used some other random champions, not to mention the fact that he gains so many buffs, or can gain so many buffs with different avenues, that a ton of Mystic champions will absolutely tear through this Ant-Man. So he's definitely going to be annoying on defense. There's no doubt about that, especially until you kind of get comfortable dexing his specials and, you know, accustomed to his mechanics. And if there are some nodes, but at the same time, if you learn how to fight against him, I do think that there will be quite a few champions that might not be like exactly perfect counters, but will work well enough to kind of nuke him down. And that is purely down to the fact that he gains a ton of buffs, and you can kind of keep on keep on top of the glancing thing, because if you intercept a lot, he will only have 10% chance at base to glance, which isn't that big. And then obviously, if you want, you can force to glance on purpose and force him how buffs that will expire by themselves and feed Mystic Dispersion. So there will be definitely some interesting interactions with this champion. Overall, at the moment, I do think he's quite solid. I do not think he's going to be at the very top of tech class. If anything, I think he's going to be primarily defender for competitive play, with some offensive use as well. He definitely reminds me of Penny Parker in terms of where I would overall rank him in tech class, where, you know, primarily a defender, solid or interesting offensive capabilities, and relatively fairly solid champion. I don't think he's going to be the world breaker that everybody has to chase, but at the same time, who knows, he might be much more annoying in defense than I expect, or much more capable in offense. So let me know what you guys think about this guy, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about